She was used to people making promises. Doctors swore she'd walk again. Therapists insisted she needed more time. Spiritualists prayed, and energy healers waved their hands. Nothing changed. Vivian Marlowe, once one of the most photographed women on the planet, was still bound to her wheelchair, paralyzed from the waist down. Her mansion, once full of parties and powerful people, had become a silent cage. So when a dusty, barefoot black boy walked up to her garden one afternoon and said, "I can heal you if you give me your leftovers," she did the only thing her cold, broken heart knew how to do. She laughed. She laughed long and hard, not because it was funny, but because it was absurd. Healing didn't come in the form of little boys with empty stomachs and big eyes. Healing came from labs, medicine, and machines, or so she believed. What Vivian didn't realize that day was that the boy wasn't joking. And everything, absolutely everything, was about to change. Vivian Marlowe used to be royalty in everything but blood. The daughter of billionaire pharmaceutical tycoon Alexander Marlowe, she grew up between penthouses, limousines, and award stages. At 29, she was a media darling. Her red carpet gown sold out in hours, her charity galas raised millions, and her relationship with tech billionaire fiancé Grant Royce was considered the definition of a power couple. But on a rainy night in November, a wrong turn changed it all. The car crash was violent. Her driver died instantly. Vivian was pulled from the wreckage, barely breathing. The diagnosis was final: complete spinal cord injury, T10 vertebrae, no chance of walking. The headlines the next morning read, "Heiress crippled in tragic crash." What the headlines didn't say was what followed. Grant left within a month. "I'm not strong enough," he said. Friends stopped visiting. Her father had a stroke out of guilt and died weeks later. The board of Marlowe Pharma eased her out quietly. The spotlight faded. Now, 2 years later, Vivian spent her days in silence inside the glass-encased mansion her father built in the countryside. The place was quiet, sterile, and smelled of polished wood and old money. Nurses rotated weekly. She barely spoke to them. Her only constant was silence. And silence, it turns out, is the cruelest sound of all. It was late summer. The sky was too blue, the air too still. Vivian sat in her rose garden, facing the horizon, sipping lukewarm tea she didn't want. Then she saw him, a boy barefoot. Skin like polished obsidian, maybe 9 or 10 years old, stood just outside the ornate iron gate. He wore a faded green shirt, torn at the shoulder, and baggy pants rolled up at the ankles. His hair was wild, and his feet were caked in dirt. The housekeeper noticed first and shooed him away, but the boy didn't flinch. He pointed toward Vivian and said, "I want to help her." Vivian rolled her chair closer. Something in his eyes, still wise, patient, unnerved her. She motioned to let him in. The boy walked slowly up the gravel path. He stopped a few feet away, looked directly at her legs, and said calmly, "I can heal you." She blinked. "Excuse me?" "I said I can heal you," he repeated. "But I'm hungry. I'll do it for your leftovers." Vivian stared at him for a long moment, then burst into laughter. "You want food, and in exchange, you'll fix my spine?" she asked. "What are you, a magical doctor?" "I'm not a doctor," he said simply, "but I know how to help. Your legs are asleep. I can wake them up." She narrowed her eyes. "And what do you want from me, really?" "Just food," he said again. "Just scraps," Vivian waved her hand. "Fine, entertain me. But don't cry when nothing happens." Dinner that night had been elegant, as always: seared sea bass with lemon risotto, grilled asparagus, and a fig reduction Vivian had barely touched. Eating had become a mechanical routine, void of enjoyment. Taste had little meaning when your world stopped at your waist. She pushed the plate aside after 2 bites, sipped her wine, and stared out the glass wall of the dining room. She half expected the boy to be gone, but as she turned, her chair toward the back patio. There he was, sitting on the marble steps like he belonged there. Legs crossed, hands in his lap, eyes closed as if meditating or waiting for the world to catch up with him. The staff had protested. "Madam, it's not safe. He's a stranger." Vivian silenced them with a gesture. "Let him be." She wheeled herself closer. "Still. Hungry?" He opened his eyes slowly and nodded. She signaled to her housekeeper, who brought out the foil-wrapped leftovers on a porcelain plate, an absurd formality given the circumstances. The boy accepted it gratefully and placed the food beside him, untouched. "May I touch your knees now?" he asked politely. Vivian raised an eyebrow. "You didn't come here just for food, did you?" "I came to help you, but food is fair trade." She shrugged. "Touch whatever you want, just don't expect applause." The boy moved closer, kneeling in front of her. He placed both of his small, rough hands, so much darker than her pale skin, on her knees. They were warm, steady, and oddly calming. For a moment, she forgot how absurd this was. Then he closed his eyes and began to whisper. It wasn't English, not Spanish, not French or anything she'd ever heard. It was melodic, somewhere between a chant and a hum. His lips moved gently, reverently. His thumbs pressed into the sides of her knees with slow, circular motions. Vivian stared at him, fascinated more than hopeful. She waited to feel something, a jolt, a twitch. A miracle. Nothing. 5 minutes passed. 10. Then he opened his eyes, removed his hands and looked at her. "That's all for today," he said softly. Vivian blinked. "That's it," he nodded. "The body doesn't wake all at once. It listens slowly." "And how long do you expect me to feed you leftovers while you whisper nonsense at my knees?" "Until they remember how to move." She let out a dry laugh. "You're either insane or a con artist. But for some reason I'm curious." The boy stood. "Then I'll come again tomorrow." And he did. Each evening at exactly 6, he returned. No matter the weather. Rain, wind, heat, he showed up barefoot, sat calmly on the garden steps, and waited to be called in. Vivian instructed her staff to prepare a small tray for him. Always the leftovers, always untouched until after the ritual. And each time, the process was the same. He would place his hands on her knees, close his eyes, and whisper the strange words like a secret prayer. Sometimes he would move his hands lower, toward her calves. Once, he pressed on her feet with both palms until she felt a faint warmth creeping up through the solace. The sensations were subtle. First, there was numbness, then pins and needles, then once what she could only describe as a phantom vibration. Deep in her femur, like the leg was trying to remember itself. But still, no movement. No miracle. One night, 2 weeks into their strange routine, she snapped. "This is ridiculous," she said after he finished. "I've given you 2 weeks of food. You haven't healed anything." Micah looked at her calmly. "Did you eat everything?" "I asked you to." She hesitated. "What does that have to do with anything?" He nodded as if her silence was answer enough. "I'm not healing your legs," he said quietly. "I'm reminding them. But they can't listen if you won't listen to yourself." "What does that even mean?" She snapped. "It means stop talking like someone who's already dead." Vivian stared at him. No one had dared speak to her like that in years. Micah stood and turned toward the garden. "I'll be back tomorrow. Or not. That's up to you." She didn't call him the next evening. She watched from her window as he waited outside in the rain for 30 minutes. He didn't knock, didn't beg. Just sat quietly with the same patience that unnerved her from the start. Finally, she called. "The butler, let him in." That night, the ritual changed. Micah had brought a small pouch made of stitched burlap. From it, he pulled what looked like dried herbs: lavender, basil, rosemary, something sweet and something bitter. He ground them together in his palms and asked Vivian to breathe deeply. "Close your eyes," he said. Not everything you need comes from outside. She did as instructed reluctantly. Breathe like you're alive, he whispered. Not like you're surviving. For the first time in 2 years, Vivian cried, not from frustration, but from something deeper. Something cracked open inside her that she hadn't touched since the accident. The part that still longed to believe she could matter again. That she wasn't a broken thing sitting in a gold cage. The next morning, she felt something new. It was a slight pressure in her right foot, a twitch, a pulse. She wasn't sure if it was real or imagined, so she asked her nurse to bring in a pin. Just a small prick to the bottom of her soul. The nurse touched her foot with the pin and Vivian flinched. She felt it. Vivian had expected the boy to flee when the thunder rolled again. Instead, he remained standing, holding his little tin cup with both hands. The boy tilted his head slightly and asked, "Are your legs still hurting?" Vivian stared at him. "They don't hurt, they just don't work." He nodded slowly, as if he understood something even doctors couldn't. Then, with a childlike simplicity, he took a step forward. "May I touch your knees?" Vivian blinked. No one had asked permission in years. They just poked, measured, injected, or scanned. Yet this barefoot child, who'd come begging for scraps, was asking with more respect than the world's top neurosurgeons. "You can try," she said softly, half expecting to feel nothing. As always, the boy knelt, his hands warm and trembling, and placed them gently on her knees. His fingers weren't calloused, but they carried a strange energy like sunlight, made solid. Vivian couldn't explain it. It wasn't magic, it wasn't religious, but it wasn't normal either. He closed his eyes, lips moving as if in silent prayer, not in any language she recognized, not Latin or Arabic or Hebrew. His voice vibrated like a hum felt through the ribs, not heard through the ears. Vivian watched, frozen not from fear, but from something deeper, awe. Then, a whisper of sensation, a tingling, like tiny sparks waking in her thighs. Her breath caught. "No," she whispered. "That's not possible." The boy opened his eyes. "You're not broken, just locked." That line haunted her. He rose and picked up his cup again. "I'll be back tomorrow." "Wait," she cried out. "What's your name?" He looked over his shoulder. "Imari." And he was gone again, swallowed by the mist and pine trees. Vivian barely slept that night. Her staff noticed the shift, her fingers switching on the arms of her chair, her eyes refusing to drift off into their usual dull stare. "Are you all right, ma'am?" asked Alice, her day nurse. "I think I felt something." Alice had heard similar things before. False hope. Ghost sensations. But this time, there was conviction in Vivian's voice that unsettled her. "Do you want me to call the doctor?" "No, I want to see the boy again," so she waited. By the window, in her chair, wrapped in a velvet throw and silence, Imari returned the next afternoon, as promised. This time with a cloth bundle, bread rolls, dry corn, and some moldy cheese she recognized as from her own kitchen scraps. He smiled. A deal is a deal. She let him touch her knees again. Day after day, he came. His hands, small but determined, mapped her nerves with care no surgeon had shown. And slowly, almost imperceptibly, the sensation grew. A twitch here, a flex there, not enough to stand, but enough to hope. Vivian didn't tell anyone, because how could she? That a child from the streets had begun reversing the impossible. But on the 8th day, her toe moved. Alice saw it, and she dropped the tray she was carrying. That night, Vivian wept not from pain, but from remembering what it felt like to be alive. Vivian woke before dawn. Her dreams had grown vividly, lush fields she'd never walked, foreign languages she understood fluently, faces of people she had never met, but somehow loved. In these dreams, she stood tall, walked, ran, danced, laughed. Her legs, whole again, carried her through endless fields of golden light. She couldn't tell anymore where the dreams ended and the miracle began. The morning sun filtered in through her floor-to-ceiling windows, catching flecks of dust and bathing her in golden haze. And when she glanced down, she saw her toes, moving, slowly, but deliberately. No spasms, no illusions. Just life returning. "Dear God," she whispered. But it wasn't God who'd been coming to her. It was a boy. A barefoot boy with ancient eyes. That morning at the gate she waited for him earlier than usual. Wrapped in a wool shawl, she wheeled herself down the long stone path, leading toward the edge of her estate, where the iron gates met the pine forest. There were rumors, always, about that forest. The villagers said strange things lived inside it, creatures who spoke in riddles, and lights that appeared only to the lost. Vivian had never believed them. She'd built her mansion precisely to escape superstition, not embrace it. But now, every pine needle seemed to hum with unseen truth. Imari emerged from the trees just as the sunlight turned honey gold. His hair was a mess of curls, his shirt ragged, his smile radiant. "You came far today," he said gently. "I need answers." "I know." She stared hard at him. "What are you?" He tilted his head. "I'm not here to hurt you." "That's not what I asked." He sighed, setting down his tin cup and a folded cloth of leftover food again. "Some questions are too loud for one morning." "Try me." He crouched beside her chair. "Have you heard of the singing pines?" Vivian narrowed her eyes. "Old folklore, trees that whisper secrets." I dismissed that as nonsense. He touched the dirt with his fingertips. "The pines do sing, Vivian, but only to those who've been quiet long enough to hear them." She blinked. "What does that have to do with you?" "I was born of the sound, or maybe I was lost in it. I don't remember." Vivian leaned back, unsure if she was speaking with a mad child or a holy vision. "Are you saying you're not human?" He didn't answer directly. Instead, he placed his hand over her heart and said, "Do you feel this?" Her chest warmed. The heat pulsed through her ribs. Her eyes widened. Her legs ached not with pain, but with pressure, like a limb waking from a very long sleep. "That's not possible," she murmured. "It's not about what's possible. It's about what's remembered," Imari whispered. "Your body didn't forget how to walk. It was just waiting for your spirit to come back." Vivian blinked rapidly. Her lips trembled. "Are you an angel?" Imari smiled. "No, but I've been sent by something kind." That night, the mansion trembled. Later that evening, Vivian lay in bed, her mind spinning. What if this boy wasn't a miracle, but a warning? Her doctors called. Nurses checked in. She dismissed them all. At midnight, thunder returned, but not outside. It came from within the forest. She wheeled herself to the balcony, trembling. The trees below lit up with flickering blue light, soft, wavering, like fireflies dancing in slow motion. But these weren't fireflies. They moved with purpose. They spiraled upward, forming symbols in the air. And then she saw them dash others. Children. 5 of them, all barefoot, all glowing faintly, standing beneath the pines, watching her. And in their midst stood Imari. But he looked different now, taller, older, his presence commanding. Not frightening, but powerful. Her heart pounded. A whisper hers? The winds? "Rose, you were chosen, Vivian, not because you were broken, but because you once believed and forgot." She gasped, stepping backward, and realized something. She had stepped. Both legs had taken weight. She stared at her feet in disbelief. Her knees shook, not from weakness, but from awe. "No one will believe this," she whispered. But somewhere in the pines, a voice echoed back, "They're not meant to. Only you were." Vivian watched as the boy, now so familiar to her heart, stood barefoot at the edge of her veranda, his small frame trembling not from fear, but something deeper. He wasn't the same child who had once traded healing for scraps. His eyes had seen too much. His body had carried more than its share of burdens. But still, there he stood, as if waiting for permission to keep doing what no one else could, reminding her that life, real life, was worth feeling again. "I don't want to go back," he said softly, his voice barely above a whisper. "They're going to come for me soon." "Who?" Vivian asked. She reached toward him instinctively, but he pulled back. "Who's coming, Isaiah?" "The people who sell promises," he said. "The ones who take kids like me and teach them how to pretend we're magic. Then they take the money. All of it." Vivian's blood ran cold. In the days since she stood again, truly stood, on her own legs, she had not asked him where his power came from. She had been so consumed with her miracle, her gratitude, that she forgot to question the price of it. Now the truth stood before her in a tattered shirt and bruised skin. "They said I was a prophet when I was 5. Isaiah continued, staring at the clouds. "Said I could take away pain. And when I did, they told me to keep doing it. Every week, every show. Some people faked it. Some really got better, but me ... I just got tired." Vivian knelt in front of him, her restored legs aching but steady. "You're not a prophet. You're a boy. A boy who gave me back my life. I don't care what they said you are. You're not going anywhere." Isaiah looked away. "They'll come anyway. They always do." She stood and placed a hand on his shoulder. "Let them come. I have lawyers, security. Power they won't understand. They won't take you, Isaiah. Not again." But deep down, even as she said it, Vivian knew it wasn't just men in suits or old churchwomen in long dresses who haunted Isaiah. It was bigger. It was a system. A world that fed on desperation and miracles alike. And the more people heard her story, the more they believed in the child who healed her, the more danger he would face. That evening, her estate gates were lined with news vans. Someone had leaked the story. Reporters demanded interviews. Social media was on fire with hashtags. #BoyHealer, #Miracle at Marlowe Mansion, #Walk Again. Vivian pulled Isaiah inside, shut the doors, and closed every curtain. But the world had already seen the boy. And the world wanted more. She called her lawyers. She called the police. She even called the Child Protection Agency. But none of them had answers for what Isaiah truly was or how to keep him safe. His name wasn't on any school records, no birth certificate, no legal guardianship. He had existed in the cracks. And now, the spotlight was forcing him into places he was never meant to be. That night, Vivian did something she hadn't done in over a decade. She prayed, not the polished kind of prayer she used to recite at galas or funerals, but the kind that came from the soft, breaking parts of a soul that knows it cannot control the storm. "Please," she whispered into the quiet. "Don't let them take him. Don't let him be lost. Not again." Isaiah knocked on her door a few minutes later. "I heard you," he said. She blinked. "What do you mean?" "Your prayer," he said with a small smile. "You finally said one that wasn't for yourself." She laughed softly, through tears, and pulled him into her arms. But across the hedge-lined estate, beneath the lights of camera flashes and curious drones, the world was already preparing its next move. They had seen the miracle. Now they wanted proof. And some of them would do anything to get it. The press called it the miracle of Marlowe Estate. News vans lined the streets. Headlines screamed about a billionaire woman walking again, thanks to an unknown child healer. But inside the towering estate gates, the truth lived quietly in whispers and glances. Jabari never spoke of how he had done it. When asked, he simply shrugged and said, "I asked her body to remember." That confused everyone: doctors, priests, scientists. MRI scans confirmed that Vivian's spine had partially regenerated in ways thought medically impossible. Her nerves had rerouted. Her muscle memory was restoring. But no surgery, no therapy could explain how it had happened. He stayed in her guest house, but never for long. He told her the stars didn't stay in one sky forever, that he had to go where others needed him. She cried when he said goodbye, not like a woman losing a child, but like a child losing someone who reminded her of God. Before leaving, Jabari handed her a folded paper. It wasn't a letter. It was a drawing. A stick figure woman with wings, walking beside a smiling boy under a sun made of hearts. "You helped me heal too," he whispered. Vivian never forgot. She took over the family empire again, but not as her father's daughter, as her own. She renamed the entire foundation, the Jabari Foundation for Forgotten Miracles. It helped thousands of children with rare diseases, mothers with untreatable cancers, fathers who had given up. And every success, every case was dedicated to one little boy who asked only for leftovers. Years later, she stood before a crowd at the opening of a new children's clinic. With a cane in one hand and the world in the other, she said, "He didn't need money. He didn't need praise. He just needed someone to believe that healing doesn't always wear a white coat." As thunder rolled in the distance and the sky turned gold with sunset, someone in the back, a young girl in a wheelchair, whispered, "Maybe he'll come find me next." And perhaps, somewhere, barefoot and smiling, Jabari was already on his way.